formasi dalam menyelenggarakan pelatihan yang lebih efektif dan efisien melalui seminar virtual, e-bimtek Milia, dan pelatihan lainnya untuk memenuhi hak pegawai dalam mengembangkan kompetensi tanpa mengenal batas jarak dan waktu. Kami yakin dengan pemanfaatan teknologi membuat pelaksanaan pengembangan kompetensi semakin maju dan terdepan. Kami senantiasa bertekad dan bekerja keras mengembangkan dan memperbaiki diri agar BPSDM Provinsi DKI Jakarta dapat menjadi World Class Training Organization.
Kami bangga bersama BPSDM.
Jakarta, kota metropolitan dengan berbagai tantangan yang dihadapi, membuat inovasi-inovasi untuk mengatasi permasalahannya melalui serangkaian kebijakan publik yang disusun sehingga dapat menjadi kota percontohan bagi kota-kota lainnya untuk dapat belajar dari Jakarta. Jakarta Public Policy Center merupakan sebuah wadah untuk pengembangan kompetensi dan kebijakan publik. Bernaung di bawah Badan Pengembangan Sumber Daya Manusia, Pemerintah Provinsi DKI Jakarta, Jakarta Public Policy Center berfungsi sebagai penunjang pencapaian visi misi gubernur pada urusan pemerintahan di bidang pendidikan dan pelatihan sumber daya manusia. Keberadaan Jakarta Public Policy Center dibentuk sebagai upaya terstruktur dan sistematis dari pemerintah Provinsi DKI Jakarta melalui penyelenggaraan pengembangan kompetensi, knowledge management, dan fasilitas studi banding terkait informasi pengelolaan kebijakan publik di pemerintah Provinsi DKI Jakarta agar kebijakan publik tersebut menjadi konsisten dan tepat sasaran. Dalam rangka pengembangan kompetensi dan pengelolaan kebijakan publik, Jakarta Public Policy Center memberikan fasilitasi, di antaranya mencakup pengembangan kompetensi teknis, pengembangan kompetensi pemerintahan dan sosial kultural, pengembangan kompetensi teknis strategis melalui public training, seminar urban regeneration, fasilitas studi banding dan best practice, serta kerjasama internasional dengan lembaga atau institusi luar negeri dalam rangka pengembangan kompetensi baik ASN maupun non-ASN. Jakarta Public Policy Center untuk Jakarta Tangguh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, distinguished guests, our audience, ladies and gentlemen, and good morning to our colleagues in Netherlands. Welcome to the Jakarta Human Resource Development Board webinar session today, Thursday, the 24th of March, 2022. Our today's topic is water management, groundwater following the invisible resource. Today's topic is to commemorate World Water Day 2022 at 22nd March 2022. Groundwater is one of the most important water resources in Jakarta, and groundwater problems in Jakarta are closely related to the most discussed issues such as subset land. Due to the complexity of the issues, groundwater management must be part of the water management that needs to be managed properly. Water management in Jakarta cannot be separate from how we change groundwater policy. It has also evolved in a governance sense as well, with public participation becoming an essential aspect of the practice. Water management must consider and coordinate with other resource management groups due to the complexity of issues, and solutions to water management issues need to be long-term and adaptive to changing conditions and can be implemented by the government, specifically in addressing groundwater shortage. Jakarta learned a lot from the Netherlands as a world leader in water management due to its long history of water management challenge, in particular through Jakarta participation in the Dutch Training and Exposure Program or UTEP. Through this webinar, we hope to get a better scope regarding the groundwater and water management, and have joined us Head of Jakarta Human Resource Development Board, Mr. Muhammad Mitaulo Tamari, and representative from Nufik Neso, Ms. Nanya Burki, and also Ms. Elizabeth Tarigan, Planning Sub-Coordinator for Division of Geological, Raw Water Conservation and Clean Water Supply, Jakarta Water Resource Agency, and also Mr. Peter Hollanders, he is Senior Policy Advisor, Dutch Water Authority, Devlan, and last but not least, Ms. Inke Primadiarni. She is Long-Term Development Planning Analyst from Jakarta Regional Development Board. Hello, good morning, everyone. And today's discussion will be moderated by Mr. Muhammad Johan. He is Head of Administrative Subdivision of Technical Implementation Unit for Urban Development Innovation Center, Jakarta Regional Development Planning Board. And he graduated master's degree in public administration from Esa Unggul University, have bachelor background as urban planner, and also finished bachelor management from University of Indonesia. Well, he joined the TAP batch to 2015 and make Water Square project proposal in South Jakarta, collaborate with University of Applied Science Rotterdam and Esa Unggul University. Hello, good afternoon, Mr. Johan. Okay, distinguished guests, our audience, ladies and gentlemen, let us first listen to the opening remarks by the head of Jakarta Human Resource Development Board. For the opening remarks to Mr. Muhammad Mitaulo Tamari, the time is yours.
Thank you, Mbak Flo. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good morning, Mr. Peter, and good afternoon for everyone. My name is Muhammad Miftahullah Tamari, Head of Human Resources Development Board of Jakarta Capital City Government. May prosperity be upon us all. The Honorable Head of the Human Resources Development Board of Ministry of Home Affairs Indonesia, Assistant to the Provincial Secretary of DKI Jakarta Province, representative from Nufik Neso, Ms. Nanya Burki. Thank you, Ms. Nanya. The speakers, Ibu Elizabeth Tarigan, Planning Sub-Coordinator for Division of Geological, Raw Water Conservation and Clean Water Supply, Jakarta Water Resources Agency, Peter Hollanders, Senior Policy Advisor, Dutch Water Authority Devlan, Ibu Inke Primadiarni, Long-Term Development Planning Analyst, Jakarta Regional Development Board. Our moderator, Mr. Muhammad Johan, Head of Administrative Subdivision of Technical Implementation Unit for Urban Development Innovation Center, Jakarta Regional Development Planning Board. Official within the Provincial Government of Jakarta Province, invited participants, and everyone who attend this virtual session. Welcome to Virtual International Seminar, theme Water Management, Groundwater Following the Invisible Resource. As a commemoration of World Water Day at 22nd March 2022. This event is a collaboration between Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands through Nufik Neso, Human Resources Development Board of Jakarta through Jakarta Public Policy Center, Jakarta Regional Development Board, Jakarta Water Resources Agency, and DUTEP alumni. Thank you for taking your time to attend and participate on this event. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this virtual seminar is being held to facilitate the discussion and learn from the best practices and experts on how to optimally manage water management, especially groundwater management to value groundwater, and how to overcome the water management issues effectively. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that this virtual seminar will become an effective forum to obtain insight and some inputs, which later can also be adapted to DKI Jakarta province, to other region, particularly to the citizen. To the speakers and moderator, I would like to express my highest appreciation for sharing their knowledge and experiences. And to the participant, I hope that you can have a fruitful discussion in this virtual seminar to get the optimal benefits. That is all for me. Once again, welcome and thank you very much for attending virtual seminar, Water Management, Groundwater, Valuing the Invisible Resource. Billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Mr. Miftah, for the opening remarks. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, before we begin the session, we should capture our today's moment by taking picture all together. To our panelists, please open your camera. Baik Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, kita akan berfoto bersama sebelum kita memulai webinar kita. Mohon Bapak dan Ibu membuka kameranya. Berhitungan 1, 2, dan 3, jangan lupa untuk tersenyum ya Bapak dan Ibu. On my mark, 1, 2, 3. Once more. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you very much. And for your information, this webinar session can also be accessed through our YouTube channel BPSDM DKI Jakarta. And on today's webinar, we also provide an interpreter option to accommodate English to Bahasa translation and vice versa where needed. We are also welcoming you to join our discussion by giving us questions through chat or Q&A feature on your Zoom platform. And I also would like to ask everybody to stand by at the end of the session for a short evaluation form provided by the committee. Nanti Bapak dan Ibu, kami akan memberikan form evaluasi penyelenggaraan yang akan diberikan pada saat akhir acara. Distinguished guests or audience, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let us start our webinar today, Water Management Groundwater, Following the Invincible Resource. To Mr. Johan, the time is yours.
Thank you, Miss Florentina. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Mr. Miftah, for giving me opportunity to become moderator for this event. It's very honor for me to talk again in the terms of DUTEP. I would like to say good morning to you all because we have international time in Rotterdam. It's still in the morning. Goedemorgen, Mr. Peter. Are you listening to me?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Okay, good morning. But I think we all join this event is still with morning spirit. Okay? Same with you in near Rotterdam. I also like to greet Miss Nanya Burki from Nuffic Neso. I also like to say thanks again to Nuffic Neso to send me with DUTEP Batch 2 in Rotterdam. I have a lot experience and knowledge that can be shared and can be implemented in Jakarta. Not only about water management, I also learn about West Bank or bank sampah. I already helping people in South Jakarta making bank sampah until now. Okay, let's start. The panelists, are you all ready? Okay, let's get it on. Okay, if we talk about water, usually our mind flies things about sea, river, lakes, streams, and all water that we can see on the surface, or we call it surface water. So what about groundwater? Groundwater is water that accumulates underground. It can exist in space between loose particles of dirt and rock. or in cracks and crevices in rock. That's the short description about groundwater. In this occasion, we already have 3 experts related with our topics today. The first is Miss Elizabeth Tarigan. Hello, Miss Elizabeth. We usually call her Miss Lisa.
Hello, good afternoon.
Now, she worked as planning sub-coordinator for Division of Geological, Raw Water Conservation and Clean Water Supply. Master of Integrated Water Management from the University of Queensland, Australia, and then also Bachelor of Environmental Engineering atau Sarjana Teknik Lingkungan dari Institut Teknologi Bandung. And then she also Dutch training DUTEP alumni in 2007, and then she has experience as panelist at World Water Crisis Forum in Gyeongju and Daegu, South Korea in 2017, and then she also has experience as speaker at Symposium of Water in Times of Climate of Change, a value-driven dialogue in Amsterdam in 2019. Today, she will sharing experience about the invincible of water value. Okay? Nice to meet you, Miss Lisa.
Hello.
And then for our international speaker, Mr. Peter Hollanders, he will tell us about water management in Drijfveet in Netherlands. Peter Hollanders holds a master degree in hydrology and water resource from Wageningen Agricultural University in 1993. He worked for several years in consultancy and 10 years as a lecturer, researcher in integrated water management and land and water development at UNESCO IHE in Delft since 2006. He has been working with the Dutch Water Authority of Delftland, one of the 21 water boards of the one of the 21 water boards of the Netherlands. And then he was experienced as senior policy advisor with a demonstrated history of working in the government and non-government administration. He has strong community and social service professional and skilled in sustainable development process control, environmental awareness, climate change, and water resource management, and national as well as in a variety of developing. And then our last speaker will be Miss Inke Prima Diarni. She was from Bapeda, now working as long-term development planning analyst at Jakarta Regional Development Planning Board. She also dated participant page 2, page 1 in 2017, and she also runner-up in Team DUTEP Water Challenge in 2019. And Miss Inke will, at last, she will share experience about how to become a DUTEPers. Okay. So, for the first time, I will like to give first will be Miss Elizabeth Tarigan or Miss Lisa. The time is yours. Thank you.
Good. This is, yeah. Good afternoon, everyone here in Indonesia, and good morning, everyone on the northern side of the world, in Europe and in the Netherlands. Pamita, thank you for the opportunity for me to be here representing my agency, the Water Resources Agency. So today I would like to see if I can share this. Let's see. Can my screen be seen now? Oh, not yet. Share the screen. Wait.
No, not yet.
Sorry, one moment. Okay. Okay. Yes, I think. Okay, is it visible now for everyone? I hope it's visible now, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so today's topic is about groundwater, valuing the invisible resource. So what we need to consider now, what I want to explore today is it really an invisible resource that must be valued? That's something that we are going to talk about today. So I hope that after hearing this presentation, it will give some, maybe a little bit of elaboration on how groundwater management is undertaken here in Jakarta. But first, I would like to use a disclaimer that the topic that we're discussing here, groundwater, is specifically, I mean, in the context of Jakarta. So maybe some of the contexts are not relevant to other places in Indonesia or other places maybe around the world. But here, because we're talking about the Jakarta context of groundwater, so we hope that it can give us a more understanding of the issues that we have now. So we have some keywords here that we need, that I wanted to highlight. So groundwater as a resource. Is it really a resource? Yes, it is, because it's something that we have here on Earth and then we use it. And then it's something that is available for us, but it's not a totally infinite resource. Why? Because it needs recharging, and its recharging capacity has limitation depending on the infiltration rate of the rainwater that is coming into the ground itself. The second word is invisible. Why is it invisible? Obviously, because it's underground, so it's invisible. We cannot see it day to day. The flow is unseen compared to our surface water. So it's invisible. But does it have value? Yes, it does have value. Why? It has a massive value. We use it a lot. So its usage is massive, but its quantity and quality can change. And these are the points where we put the value on groundwater. So is groundwater something new? It seems like everyone, my colleague Johan just mentioned, we always talk about surface water. So groundwater is something that we know, but we don't know. We heard, but we have not heard. But is it something new? It's not something new. It's been there since the dawn of time. So from primary school, we've learned about this, the water cycle, the complete water cycle, where rain comes down, precipitation, and then it infiltrates to the ground as groundwater, fulfill our water table, or it goes off the surface of the earth as runoff, and then everything goes to our water bodies, to the lakes, to the streams, to the sea, which will go into evaporation, transpiration, and back into the sky as rainy clouds, and then back on earth. Yeah, I'm not a pawang hujan, but this is something we should talk about the water cycle, and this is something that we should remember, that this is something very basic for us as in our life. So can we use groundwater? That's the question. Can we use groundwater? Of course, we've been using it for such a long time. Since a long time ago, we've been using it. Surface water, rainwater, groundwater is our basic source of water supply. We use it for nature. Nature itself needs it. For our plants, they took their roots took groundwater as for their food, farming. We use it for industrial, for our commercial needs, and especially we use it for our domestic domestic needs. We use it every day in our life as a potable consumption for drinking, for eating. We use it for bathing and cleaning, and we use it for our plants and greeneries. So we use it all the time. So it's a valuable resource. Why? Because it's something that we use, it's something that we value, but as we asked the keyword before, is it really invisible if it's something that we value? Is it regulated? Well, I'm talking about the context of Jakarta specifically. In Jakarta, groundwater is regulated, and it has been regulated for quite a while. Since 1998, there's already provincial regulation on implementation and tax on groundwater usage, which states that groundwater can be extracted without permit if it's only for household use with a maximum of 50 cubic per month, and the area is not within the PAM coverage area. PAM is our water supply company, right? It can also be used for research and investigation by government and private institutions, but with certain terms and conditions. But for commercial and industrial use, I'm underlining this, for commercial and industrial use, it can be extracted with permit by the governor as head of the province, with recommendation given by the relevant ministry. And we have to refer also to the groundwater basin map to see whether the permit that we are giving is still possible, because as I say, we're talking in the context of Jakarta, where we also have problem in regards to groundwater extraction. So what is the big question here? Are there no impact on usage of groundwater? We see many news lately, new subsidy and prognosis for Jakarta, Joe Biden's prediction on Jakarta sinking in 10 years, and then prevent Jakarta from sinking, a watery onslaught from sea, sky, and land in the world's fastest sinking city, flood, over extraction, sinking, climate change. These are some of the problems that we're experiencing now. And lately in the news, it has become quite popular lately. It's become a trending topic. Not only in Indonesia, Jakarta, but also overseas. People are also talking about Jakarta's problem regarding the land subsidence. And these are somehow very related to the groundwater extraction that is happening in Jakarta. Maybe some of you are confused why flood is also in here, but because of groundwater extraction and land subsidence, which is an effect of an effect also. Many of our drainage channels, the topography or the topography has changed. It's not a straight line anymore, but there are some lines where it's broken, where there are new lower grounds which can be inundated during rain time. So what's the key word here? Management, management, management. Everything about water is about management, how we have to manage the water that we have now, either surface water, groundwater, rainwater, any kind of water. So there are three pillars of water or groundwater management: the usage, the responsible and controlled usage, and the possibility of replacing the groundwater as a source. The action-based conservation for watershed protection and recovery actions to replenish or to recharge the groundwater itself. And also controlling the water destructive force. In here, it's controlling the quality, monitoring the usage and the quantity of the groundwater itself. The strategy in Jakarta, we uphold the regulations. We increase water supply and surface coverage area to replace usage of the groundwater, reduce. And then we do conservation actions, which overall will reduce the groundwater usage. So these are the basic management principles and strategy that we have in Jakarta in terms of groundwater management. So regulate. So I talk about permission to extract groundwater, but with consideration of the groundwater catchment or conservation zone map. This is the groundwater conservation zone map. Sorry for those who don't speak Indonesian, because it's a bit hard to translate this, because I got this also as a picture. So we see different colors, we see different parts here, and we can see that there are protection area. The green ones, green are always in connotation or something recycle, reduce, replanted on something. So the area on the green is the area that has the maximum impact if you want to do recharge on groundwater. And then the red area. Red is always internationally known as no go, nothing, don't do that, it's not allowed. So the red zone are the area that is severely damaged in Jakarta, where no permits, no groundwater extraction permits are allowed there anymore. And the other areas has limitations on the permit that is given and how the amount of water that can be extracted to use. So these are the basis of groundwater usage in Jakarta. So regulation on monitoring and limiting groundwater exploitation, we have a lot of them. But I would like to highlight just a few that is very important. Number 7 is the governor regulation regarding the cost of the water, of groundwater extraction as tax basis. And then we have the governor regulation number 109, 2021 regarding infiltration well, but actually it's more about rainwater management, rainwater harvesting and rainwater management as a method to conserve, to recharge groundwater. And then we have the latest breakthrough for Jakarta in terms of regulating groundwater, which is the governor regulation number 93, 2021, which is the free groundwater extraction zone, where it's stated that for a certain areas and streets listed in the regulation, there can be no more groundwater extraction because it's supplied primarily by PAM, our water company in Jakarta. And then we have the regulation, the provincial regulation number 17, 2010, regarding the groundwater tax. Tax here doesn't mean an income for Jakarta. No, tax here means a method of regulating the use of the extraction of groundwater by sanctioning people. So when you put monetary value, then people will suddenly think, oh no, it's too expensive and things like that. Okay, and then we have the regulation number 10, 1998. So we make groundwater feasible through our regulations, so everyone is aware. And then we also do actions to replace it by increasing our pipe water supply. So these are some of the actions that Jakarta is doing in terms of increasing our water supply. Because if you stop groundwater usage, or if you stop people, then you have to consider another supply. So these are the actions that is being done by Jakarta, the strategy that is being done Jakarta locally and regionally. So we have the existing coverage and we have the targeted coverage. And by 2030, we hope that 100% of Jakarta area will be supplied by pipe water supply system. As we can see here. And also don't forget, the Thousand Islands Regency is also part of Jakarta. We sometimes forget the Thousand Islands Regency. And until now, 90% of the Thousand Islands Regency has been provided water through seawater reverse osmosis technology. So I want to show a bit of understanding here regarding pipe water supply and groundwater extraction in Jakarta, with some highlight on certain years, 1998, 2010, and 2020. 1938, there's a major decrease in groundwater usage because that's when we start the partnership with our two water companies private companies partner, and that really increased the coverage of Jakarta and then reduce in water supply, pipe water supply, and reduce the usage of groundwater. In 2010, we launched the groundwater tax. So people, we put a value on the water, and then people suddenly understand that it's not free at all. So then, and it's expensive compared to the pipe supply system, and then that also decreased the usage of groundwater. So what's the impact between groundwater and then land subsidence? As you can see, 2007, 2010, lots of areas are still impacted by land subsidence, even no matter how small. But then in 2014 and 2018, there's a decrease in use based on the graphic that you see now due to this, the items that I just mentioned before. So the water pricing for the tax is very expensive. So the people then consider that it's better to use the water supply pipe compared to extracting groundwater. So we value the groundwater. We've put value on the groundwater. It's not free anymore. Action-based conservation. So increasing water supply and service coverage. That's our actions, replacing groundwater to another water supply system. And then rainwater management approach. As I said before, in the water cycle, groundwater is part of the rainwater cycle. So it's part of the infiltration of the rainwater cycle. So that's what we want to approach here, that there are 3 types of rainwater management approach. Retention, where you collect and infiltrate rainwater to the ground. Detention, this is especially for northern Jakarta, where you cannot infiltrate, but you collect it. You can collect it temporarily. And then collecting rainwater for reuse, which we previously, in the old days, I remember we used this a lot, but now we don't use it anymore. So this is something that can be used in every household. So we replenish the resource, we recharge the resource, we conserve the resource. So these are some of the actions that we do in our department, in our agency, regarding all those efforts that we want to do. The 942 project is the 9 polder for reservoirs and 2 rivers development project, in the hope of creating a blue-green environment, and also a place where water can be conserved. Actions. The vertical drainage project, infiltrating water to the ground. This is also something that's been massively done, and we're also asking for the involvement of the people, not just the government, in also doing vertical drainage, sumur resapan, at their own houses. Wastewater treatment projects. As I said, never forget that for groundwater to be able to replenish, then the surface water or water going into the ground must be of a good quality. So we must treat them. We must treat them so that we can have a good surface water quality as a source of water, and also we can treat the water coming into the underground. Why we need to treat our wastewater? Because our septic tanks in Jakarta, many of us are using septic tanks. It's still traditional septic tanks, which sometimes it's not waterproof. So the fluid in the septic tank goes into our water ground. So it has a high content of E. coli, and that is dangerous for our body. So we have to treat our wastewater to keep our surface water clean. Actions. So how was it in the Netherlands? I just want to touch a little bit on my YouTube experience. My friend Inke will elaborate more, and Mr. Peter will also elaborate on how it's done in the Netherlands. But these are some of the things that is a goal for me personally. It's a goal, but also for Jakarta. We can see that you can drink water from a public tap directly, clean water, because the water system there is already good, and then you can use it as potable for cooking. And also you can see the quality of the lake there. Please excuse the 2 gentlemen which are having fun taking a picture in this wonderful scenery, but you can see how clear the water is. That's how a reservoir should be, so that it can be used as a source of water, or it can infiltrate to the ground to replenish the groundwater. But what did they do there? They treat it in the wastewater, large-scale wastewater. So it's the whole cycle all together. They use the infiltration, the precipitation, the effort. So in the end, it's all back to the water cycle. So is groundwater truly invisible? No, it's always there. It's been there. We use it every day, and everyone uses it every day. We know about it, and it's not totally infinite. We have to remember that it's not totally infinite. We have to do recharge more than extractions. So we have to regulate, replace, recharge, treat, conserve. And it's not just the job of us as the government, but it's also to the people. All of us, everyone can do their part in conserving groundwater. So Jakarta, we value our groundwater, safe groundwater. Thank you very much. Your voice is, you're still on mute, Pak Johan?
Okay, sorry. Thank you, Miss Lisa. What a nice presentation from you. It's inspiring us, and I can make remarks from your presentation. That is, you said that Joe Biden prediction about Jakarta will singing is drive us to move to capital city from Jakarta, right?
But we will still be here.
Yes, we will still be here,
So
and
we still
we
need
will
to
not.
take care of Jakarta.
Okay, and then already read chat room. There is Mr. Alpha is mentioning about cloud engineering. I think you if he will making question about that, we can answer it later after next presenter. And then I also remarks in chat room is Mr. Komarajaya. She said that Netherlands living comfortably below the sea level. And then he also mentioned about pipe water. Yeah. And what I like about your presentation is you give information for us about 942 project. That's really great project that I think is already making good progress, because at the month of January and February we not hearing a lot of news about Jakarta flooding.
Hopefully.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
and it's already March. I hope it's also will going so on. No flooding news again in Jakarta. I hope
With
it's
all the participation of everyone, I think we can reduce. Not totally flood free, but we can reduce.
I hope you and your team will be succeed for 942 project. And then I will continue to our next speaker, Mr. Peter. Bapak Ibu sekalian, mohon izin saya jelaskan ya. Pak Peter ini dapat sedikit masalah teknis, jadi nggak bisa terlihat di layar ya, karena ada masalah di koneksi dan mungkin kamera di laptopnya ada bermasalah. Hello, Mr. Peter.
Hello, good morning, afternoon, sorry.
Yes, I already mentioned to all the participants that we cannot see you because technical problem in your place, but it's okay for everyone, because what we need is your knowledge, and then your presentation will be helped with the team in Jakarta. Okay, so Mr. Peter, are you
Okay.
ready?
I am ready, yeah.
Okay, the time is yours.
Okay, Ibu Kustara, you would share the presentation for me? Okay, thank you very much. Now we'll give a quick remark, then once to skip to the next slide. So you can skip to the next slide. The first views are going very fast. First of all, let me make the remark that Mrs. Lisa took a lot of words already from my, not so much from my presentation, but very happy to hear the many similarities that already exist between the Netherlands and Jakarta. And that somebody was saying we live comfortably below sea level. That maybe is true, but it also comes with the, let's say, with the price. So let's quickly jump into the Netherlands. This is the location of the Netherlands in western part of Europe. Yeah, next slide, please. And here we see that the Netherlands is basically part of a deltaic area. We receive from major, let's say, river contributions from the central part of Europe. We receive many water that is coming through the main rivers towards the coast. And we see, now I'm not in control of my own presentation, but we see here, let's say, 4 main catchment areas, of which the largest one is the River Rhine, which comes from the central part of Europe to the lower delta. And all of the water that is coming from Germany, from Switzerland, Austria, and France is coming through the Netherlands, and that is what we really have to manage in relation to surface water so far. River water. Yes, next one. Yeah, skip that one. Maybe there are some, okay, yeah. Okay, thank you. Here we see that basically the Netherlands is, somebody said below sea level. The western part of the Netherlands is basically under the influence of the coast, and the eastern part of the Netherlands is under the influence of river discharges, the main river discharges that's coming from Europe. And this picture is a little bit outdated already, because the influence of the rivers, the brownish colors on the red, are indeed, in present times, it is much bigger because the discharges have increased due to climatic conditions. Next one. Now, the lower part of the Netherlands, which is under the influence of the sea, that is also an area that is mainly below sea level, comfortably, but we have to work on it. And all the dots that you see is, for example, a graphical presentation of all the locations where we have pumping stations. So in order to live comfortably below sea level, we have to keep on pumping. We are pumping and pumping and pumping. And these are a tremendous amounts of smaller and bigger pumping stations. Next one. So if tomorrow we all would decide, all water managers, to say we go on holidays to Jakarta or to Bali or to somewhere else in the world, then this would happen with the Netherlands. So if we plug out the energy, then half of the Netherlands would get flooded in 15 days time. Of course, this is just an imagination, and we are working hard to live comfortably below sea level and not in sea level. Next one. Yeah, so generally speaking, we have, let's say, in relation to surface water, the Netherlands is divided basically in two parts. We have a western part, which is under the influence of the sea and the coast, and we have the eastern part, which is under the influence of the rivers. But still, as a whole, the Netherlands is a country with a rainfall excess. We have 900 millimeters rainfall. We have evaporation, which is half about the number. So we have still excess rainfall that we generally have to drain out of our systems. And that is our fortunate. And I'll come back to that, why that is a fortunate. Please, next one. So in order to maintain our challenges, let's say, for water management in the Netherlands is basically in water management aspect, it's organized in, we see that on the left presentation, on the left image, we see that the Netherlands is divided into water authorities, or water boards, as we call that. And the whole of the Netherlands is covered. Every area is managed by a water authority. And you see that in the very lower left corner somewhere, there is the word Delfland, and that is the area where I am working. I'm living below sea level, and I'm working below sea level. So that's basically kind of the stupidest idea that you would do below sea level. But we have faith in our jobs. And the water authorities, they work together in order to keep the country safe. And to keep the country safe, they have divided the country in different, we call that safety zones. And a safety zone is basically, and you see that on the image on the right, by the different colors, and each different color is a larger safety zone, which is surrounded by a primary dike. And that dike really has to be maintained, and that is all due to the collaborations and the working, let's say, working together with between the 21 water authorities of the Netherlands. So the whole of the water management of the Netherlands is embedded by a dike system. Next one. Now, do we have? Are we ready for the future? There are some challenges that we have. First of all, we know that the climate is changing. So that is an external factor. And that external factor is bringing in excess rainfall, but also drought. We are also enforcing our, let's say, our own environment because we are challenging the environment because of the ever-increasing urban areas, pavements, concretes. And the last but not least, it's an issue that is still to be addressed, is that budgets are basically decreasing, or relatively, because things and investments are becoming more expensive. Yeah, the value of money goes down. So the challenge is basically, we say we have to do more with less money, and sometimes also with less capacity. At the same time, we have to be economically and also environmentally sound. And this is why we are looking for new partnerships. Okay, next one. Now, this is just a presentation of the addressing of the urbanization. So many times we talk about climate change, but urbanization, that is, let's say, an example of a factor that we enforced ourselves. And here you see that over, let's say, 80 years of time frame, or maybe a century, that we see an increase of urbanization with a factor of 5. And this is a tremendous result and has also a tremendous effect on, and let's say, in addition to the climate change. I come back to that as an example. Please, next one. So let's say in present times, so being challenged by external factors like climate change and internal factors like urbanization and more concrete and more bricks, we are looking for ways to optimize the water management system in a continuously way and in a continuously new setting. And this is a little bit of an approach in which the governments these days, also the water management in the Netherlands, a water authority, is a governmental institution, but the government itself is not so much implementing measures or developing new ideas of, and that is what we have to work together with the let's say with the entrepreneurs, with the enterprises, and with the science, with the universities and the knowledge institutions, because together the science brings in the knowledge, the entrepreneurs bring in the new materials, they are the consultants, and the governments are the ones who make things possible, because the governments usually have the money to do the investment. And we talk in this situation usually about a golden triangle in which we really have to work together with our total environment. So it's not only the water authority itself that decides, no, we are reliable on science and the entrepreneurs. And we do that in a constant circle. And I also saw that this morning with you, Payo, in which you introduce also the PDCA cycle, in which you say we start something, we check, we implement, and we check again, and we modify. So we do that in a continuously circle. Please, next one. So if I zoom in a little bit on climate change, and I am not really, let's say, I'm aware that I am not telling the whole picture, so I just keep the highlights. So once we are talking about there is a climate change and also in relation to urbanization, then we see that more extreme rainfall events are also torturing the Netherlands. So initially you can say we have to pump out more water. Yeah, but pumping out more water means that you have to enlarge the capacity of the canals, but also to enlarge capacity of pumping stations. So you know that somehow in time, but also in space, you have limitations, because space is not endless, especially not in the Netherlands. It's just rather a small country. So once you have no more space to extend your system, you have to become creative and look more to the space around you in how you can restore or retain your water. So let's say about 3 decades ago, the Netherlands already implemented a new strategy in which they said, after that we have enlarged our drainage capacity, we have to look more into the principle of retaining and storing the rainwater. And that is something I really recognize also from Ms. Lisa in her presentation, and I'm happy for that one. So the principle of retaining, storing, and only after that discharging, that was the new principle. Yes, next one. And then we have, so when space is limited, usually we said we extend the amount of water we have to store in a horizontal direction, but you see that space is also becoming limited. And you cannot always store water at every horizontal place where you, as a water manager, would like to store the water, because you also have urban areas, you have farmers. There is a lot of, let's say, stakeholders which are not always happy with a lot of water. So once space becomes limited, you have to become creative, you have to become innovative. And we are now looking at ways to store water in a vertical direction. And here are just a few examples that we start with, but that is in our area of our water authority. We have, for example, a vast area of greenhouse farming. And the greenhouse farmers, they have, let's say, the greenhouses are glass houses. I come just, yeah, thank you. The greenhouses are glass houses, and they work like concrete. Can you turn one sheet back, please? Yes, thank you. And so we are, for example, negotiating with the land use owners, in this case, the greenhouse farmers, in order to look for, let's say, a collaboration to manage our water system in a similar way. So once we cannot, let's say, accept more water in our surface water systems, we have to look for storage facilities on the land. Yeah, we call that water management is going out of, let's say, on the land surface. So we talk with farmers. So, okay, the image was out for a moment. So we talk with farmers, with greenhouse farmers, but also with, let's say, with municipalities, with the municipalities and with the land use planners of how we can use the landscape in order to store more water in the environment. And the more water you store in your surrounding, the less water we have as an issue in our discharge of our water system. And that also means that storing water in the vertical means that we also look to active ways to store water, maybe on rooftops. But if you go to the vertical and you go down, 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 you come into the groundwater issue. So we are also looking now for ways of storing water temporarily in groundwater basins, in groundwater reservoirs, where you can store the water and at a later stage also retrieve the water again when necessary. Okay, please, next one. So next to extreme rainfall events, climate change, we also look into, we also have more droughts, periods of too less water in which we have no rainfall. And also in the Netherlands, we go towards, let's say, dry periods of really dry spells. And then really becomes the issue. So if you have more dry spells and higher temperatures, then you see here below, we also come into the issues of groundwater. As water authority, we are responsible for surface water, but as more or less, we are also partly involved in the management of groundwater. But groundwater as such is also an issue of the provinces. It is also an issue of industry. It is also an issue of, let's say, basically many stakeholders that make use of the groundwater. And groundwater is still an issue of all these stakeholders. But in times of really dry spells, we really suffer, and groundwater is basically decreasing, or the water levels is decreasing. Then we see that different issues are endangering our environment. First of all, nature disasters, so loss of species because of dryness. We have land subsidence, foundation issues of build-up areas. We might suffer from more saltwater intrusion from the coastline, and we endanger, for example, the drinking water reservoirs. And just during the presentation of Ibu Lisa, I was thinking about when she also addressed that about groundwater, it is not visible, but it's really present and we really need it, then I was thinking, if you picture that groundwater, and that is also the way groundwater is behaving, it's more like the cement in the soil, yeah, because it is floating through all the porous media that we have in the soils and subsoils and deeper subsoils. But once you take out the cement, then usually you know what is happening with with buildings. If you take out the cement, you've got a lot of, let's say, disasters and potential collapse of your infrastructure. And that is exactly what is happening with the subsoil. Okay, next one. Now, if you include then again, once the urbanization on top of the climate change, yes, next one. Then you get really, let's say, then the floods become even more severe. And if the urban development goes on and goes on, then the floods will ever increase. You also get an ever increasing pressure on groundwater, let's say on groundwater reservoirs, which you also need for drinking water, but also for industry. But also, and that is maybe something new, that basically, and I was happy to see one of these, and the third picture that you see here in the cross section to the deeper subsoils, that was also a type of picture that was Ibu-Lisa showing in her presentation. And I'm happy to share that we are working, leveling on the same level, that there is a lot of issues going on in the subsoils or in the underground. Things that you don't even see and things that we are sometimes not even aware of, that also in energy companies or new build-up areas are using energy transitions in which they use, let's say, the heat of the subsoil in order to heat up urban areas. So there is a lot of activities going on, and even if you use activities in the subsoil, it is also danger because you also start making perforations and interactions between different layers of the soil, which also have their own characteristics. So it's really asking for attention. Yes, please, next one. Yeah, now what is the Netherlands doing about groundwater, about, let's say, what is the Netherlands doing about water management in general, at least at national level, and that works through towards the, let's say, the 21 water authorities, because at national level, they think about the plans, and also the 21 water authorities, usually through the 11 provinces, have to execute the programs of the national program. And the national program is what we call a delta program, because we are a deltaic area. So the Dutch government is continuously modifying the water management activities. We are constant alert that we have to be climate proof, that we have to be proof towards the modifications that we do in our own environment. So at delta level, at national level, we create a delta plan and we continuously monitor that. The delta plan is existing out of 3 pillars. It is about water security. That means that we have to comply to make sure that we keep our dry feet. That means that we have to make the safety zones, let's say, safe, and that we also can manage the excess rainfall events that come from above. That also means that we have to make a plan for spatial adaptation, because it's not water management. It's not only, let's say, managing the river discharges, the bigger canals and the smaller canals, but it's also including your environment, your land use planning, because if you do the land use planning in a proper way, you can also manage eventually at the end of the pipe your water management system. And last but not least is that we are also looking into a properly distribution of our freshwater resources, our river discharges, which in times of dryness, in periods of big drought, we also need to, let's say, to replenish our surface water, and from our surface water, also again, our groundwater reservoirs. Yeah, so the next one, and I think that's the last one. Yeah, so we see that in these days, the role of the water manager of the Netherlands is changing. It is already changing for, let's say, two to three decades. While in, let's say, in former times, the role of the water manager was a classical one. By rules and regulation and by enforcement, you could manage your water system. Yeah? You could overrule, let's say, the inhabitants, and you say, look, this is what we need to manage our water system. This is the rule and regulations. This is what you have to comply for, etc. However, these days, we are more or less a facilitating water manager. That means that we have to look for the interaction with our surrounding, with our environment, with our land use planners, with our municipalities, with our, let's say, project developers. Because the environment we need, because if you properly can manage the environment, you can also properly manage, ultimately, your water management system. You need the environment either for making sure that you have less discharge in case of excess rainfall, or that you have enough water to be stored in your surrounding areas once there is a period of drought and you have to replenish your groundwater. So that is usually the last line. Alone, as a water manager, alone we go faster. But usually also when you sit in the car, if you are by yourself, usually we speed up that car. But if you are with more people in the car, you take it easier, but you can go further because you can also relate and you can replace each other. So alone you go faster, together you go further. So please make contact with your stakeholders. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Peter. What a nice presentation. Thank you for giving us back about Netherlands and the Netherlands, and then quite interesting that we don't have water board in Indonesia. As I know that water board is some water board is older than Hementi, right? Then some
the water boards go back to the Middle Ages.
Yeah, what we know that when we are in Rotterdam, we know that some of water board is older than the cities. Is right, Mr. Peter?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the first water authorities, I had a sheet for that one, but I left it out. It started all with farmers who developed, let's say, who drained out the water to be able to farm already in 1280, and they developed small dams in order to keep the water out or in and around the dams near the coast. And that is where you recognize also the names of the city: Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Schiedam. That all existed, originated from the first farmers who entered on that location.
And also the river is crossing the borderline from Germany and then to the Netherlands and then to Belgium. That's right. That's why.
Yes, exactly.
That's why in Netherlands we really important the water board, 21 water board. Okay. Okay. For next presentation, I will invite Miss Inka. Are you ready now?
Thank you.
Okay. The time is yours.
Thank you very much. Let me share. Okay, so good afternoon to all the webinar participants in Jakarta, and good morning to all the participants in the Netherlands and in the northern part of the world. My name is Inka Prima, and I am the alumni from DUTAP Phase 2 Batch 1 2017. And currently, I work at the Jakarta Regional Development Planning Board as an analyst for long-term planning and development. So this opening picture is actually a view from my room in the student hotel in the Rotterdam. So today's presentation, it's also kind of nostalgic moment maybe for all the DUTAP alumni who also joining this webinar. And for those who are new with DUTEP, let me begin my presentation to introduce first about DUTEP. So DUTEP, or Dutch Training and Exposure Program, is a sister city collaboration between Jakarta and Rotterdam regarding to integrated water management. This program started in 2014, and until 2020, it has already had 64 alumni. So DUTEP gives an opportunity for staffs from the Jakarta provincial government to learn about water management from best practices at one of the host organizations in Rotterdam and Delft. There are 3 host organizations. There are the City of Rotterdam, the Delftland Water Board, and Van Oord, which is a private dredging company. So besides doing an internship in this 10 to 12 weeks program, the participants also study at the Rotterdam University of Applied Sciences and learn how to prepare for the final writing and presentation. So these are DUTEP alumni from 2014 until 2020. The participant from this program consists of staff from various agencies from the Jakarta provincial government. So with those different various expertise background, we can learn from each other during the internship. And apart from the internship, we also had opportunities to do some interesting things, such as being a guest lecturer on campus, doing excursions or field trip to learn how the city adapt with climate change issues, meeting with various experts related to water management, attending seminars, conferences, or involving in water management exhibition event. We also experienced some cultural tradition in the Netherlands, for example, celebrating the King's Day, trying out traditional costume maybe, cycling around the city just like the local people do, or tasting cheese at the cheese market. But unfortunately, because of the pandemic situation, the last batch in 2020 has to be sent home earlier. So they only spend around 4 weeks in the Netherlands and continue their program with online learning. In 2016, there was a DUTEP graduation workshop for the alumni from phase 1. So the delegation from the Netherlands came to Jakarta to experience some efforts that Jakarta has made in overcoming climate change, as well as to share knowledge with DUTEP alumni. So there are some field trips and also workshops about integrated smart participatory planning for multifunctional public space. And at this event, the DUTEP alumni has also had opportunity to present their research project. In 2019, an event called DUTEP Water Challenge was held, where the alumni were divided into several teams and then competed to write a research proposals related to solutions that could be done to overcome water management problems in Jakarta based on their experience during their internship in the Netherlands. And luckily, my team came out as the second winner team, and together with the representative from the first winning team, I had an opportunity to attend the symposium in the Vrije Universiteit in Amsterdam to present our project. And the result of this symposium have been compiled into a book and have been published with the title Water in Times of Climate Change, a Values-Driven Dialogue. So now we are talking about the lesson learned from our 3 months internship in the Netherlands. Just like many other Delta cities, Jakarta and Rotterdam is vulnerable to the consequences of climate change. The rise in sea levels and heavy rainfall directly influence the city's flood risk. And they also face challenges in longer periods of drought and groundwater deficit. So lower groundwater levels in turn affects the pit ground drying out and sinking. And to overcome with this, the city has strategy to make extra room for water, both in water system as well as in individual projects such as in the private property. What amazed me when I was there is that everywhere we go, it seems every infrastructure or buildings, they're all created to be adaptive to water. Just like in this picture, you can see that wherever it is possible in all parts of the city, rainwater must be captured and retained where it falls, and it has to be delayed drainage. And also, when necessary, the rainwater should be used to augment or recharge the groundwater and to irrigate the flora of the city. So in Rotterdam, they're really making use of the space in the city. The public spaces have to be multifunctional. For example, the water plaza, it can be used as a skate park. When there is a heavy rainfall, then it will be function as a temporary water storage. So the current water system is being strengthened by the more room for the water in canals and also water in the lakes and etc. because the system needs to be robust. And to reduce the fluctuations in groundwater levels can be achieved by facilitating infiltration. The hard concrete or the pavement area has to be replaced by a softer one. Here, for example, there are permeable pavement and porous paving materials. Streets, parks, gardens, parking area all function as a sponge. They designed to absorb or collect water during heavy rainfall and to allow it to gradually infiltrate to the groundwater. As you can see in this picture, there is a big parking area that has water shells beneath to store the water. But infiltration alone is not enough. The robust system means it has to be combined with other measures. Green roofs is the other examples of adaptive measures that can be taken on private property. It can be developed into blue roofs or polder roof so that it can combine with the reuse of rainwater within the building. In the Netherlands, there is a scheme for incentive given to people who build green roof in their house. So this is a good trigger for public to make their building or environment become resilient. So the next lesson learned is about working together. For project regarding to water management, the municipality of Rotterdam is working together with its citizens, university, housing corporations, building and property owners, and other stakeholders. For example, for the Bentonplein Water Square project, a number of stakeholders work closely together to produce the final design. So the stakeholders, including the college student, a church community, a youth theater, a sports school, and local residents. And during the course of these 3 workshops, such topics as potential usage, desired characteristic, and the influence of rainwater on the area were discussed. So this led to a design that created by all stakeholders in which water storage provide opportunities for sport and also leisure. When I was joined the TAP in 2017, my office in the Delftland Water Board, they built a platform that can represent the concept of working together. It is a website called the Water Window, where people from different cities in the Netherlands, they can change their ideas through this website. And there is also a scoring from the government, start from 1 to 10. And if the government already idea, then your idea can be duplicated for people in other cities. So after the lesson learned, this is me and my team proposal for the DUTAP Water Challenge in 2019. And for this project, we try to elaborate what we have learned in the Netherlands and try to combine it with something more local in Indonesia. From DUTAP, we learned how water has always been collected, stored, recycled, and reused. And as we know that Indonesia has the largest Muslim population in the world, and that water is a very important source for purifying ourselves before we do our prayer activity. And in Jakarta, water used for ablution activity is around 17 million liters of water per day. Can you imagine that? This produces gray water, and in the existing condition, it's directly discharged to the sewer. So this water actually has potential to be stored and also can be a new source to recharge or gradually infiltrate into the groundwater. So we came up with the idea of recycling the ablution water in Fatahillah Mosque in Jakarta City Hall. So the system worked by capturing the ablution water through the collecting pipe, and then after that, the water is being treated at the biofilter tank. And the treated water is being channeled into the infiltration crates. And then the water can be infiltrated to the ground. And the other treated water can be used for other activities, such as cleaning the mows or watering the plants. And we still have surplus for storage. So before I end my presentation, I'd like to share an information that the Jakarta provincial government has a digital library application that can be downloaded through your mobile phone. So it is very easy to install, and the application is called iJakarta, where you can be a member and you can access the DUTEP folder. There will be 64 final project papers from all the DUTEP alumni. And there are various topics that you can access. So maybe for the potential next participants or future candidates of DUTEP, maybe you can try accessing this application. I hope it will give you an insight on how we elaborate those knowledge that we have learned in the Netherlands into something that can be implemented in Jakarta. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Inke, for also nice presentation, and you represent us all, DUTEPers.
Of course.
with great experience that you share to us, including about 3 months living in hotels and living like Rotterdamers. Okay. What I see from your presentation is you already win the second winners of DUTEP challenge, water challenge. I think your team is making a great performance and brilliant ideas about how to reuse water from ablution. Jadi air wudhu diputar lagi ya, supaya bisa digunakan lagi. Itu metodenya dari Belanda ya. It was very interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, we already still have 20 minutes left, but what I see is we already have 9 questions, and I think with the less of time, please, all panelists, I will read the question, and you have only 20 minutes, so perhaps the first question I will be giving to Mr. Peter first. Okay, it is okay for Miss Lisa and Miss Inka?
Yeah.
Okay, the first question for Mr. Peter is from Mr. Komara in Urban Studies, University of Indonesia. After observing Jakarta case on water management, how much longer the water management in Jakarta will be at the same level of standard as in Holland, or as in Japan? All urban water called drinkable, Bedang. That's from Mr. Komara to Mr. Peter. You can answer it now, Mr. Peter.
I can reflect on that. So thank you for the question. Maybe I refer to the remark that somebody made in the Netherlands. You can live comfortably below sea level, but you can only do that if you, let's say, also make the proper investments for that one. And that means investment is costing money. So, and I'm not able to look in the wallets of other people, but it is also a matter of priorities. So if you are modifying and adjusting and accommodating your water management system, it also means that you have to invest in it. And usually in the Netherlands, because we have water authorities, people also pay for, let's say, not so much the water, but they pay for the infrastructure to be safe and to live in the water. And maybe that is not a common thing that is existing in Indonesia, But let's say in the Netherlands, I pay as much as let's say that you pay for your mobile phone and the monthly let's say wages that you pay for your mobile abonnement. That is also the price that you pay for water management in the Netherlands. And depending on where you live, you pay a little bit more or you pay a little bit less. But I'm very happy to see that in both presentations, there is basically, you didn't need my presentation about the Netherlands, because what Lisa was explaining about what measures and actions and polder development actions you have to take, and that is presented, and what Ibu Inke was presenting, and what knowledge she took, what you all took from Utrecht back to Jakarta is so tremendous that I think I was in excitement this morning. I'm happy to share that with you. And then I think that please keep up this good spirit and the actions that you foresee and the drive that you have to accommodate and to modify the system, because the things that you say are all great, are all right. The time in which you are able to implement, that's all about money, and it's all about let's say priority. And if we become alert that the priority becomes high, or if the urgency becomes high, then people are also willing to do the investment, or people or governments are willing to do the investment. But of course, let's say you have let's say a governmental infrastructure that is just a little bit different than in the Netherlands. You have a tremendous amount of, let's say, not only Jakarta, but you have many islands, you have many inhabitants. We are only a very small, let's say, stamp area, postal stamp, with only 18 million people that can be managed quite easily. And I think that is an advantage of the Netherlands. Although I think we should keep investing in sharing this knowledge and with you, and sharing and developing, let's say, our partnership. And if we develop a proper partnership, we can help, let's say, both ways. And that might actually maybe speed up. And the thing is speeding up. The thing is, you don't know whether you're speeding up or you're doing your best effort. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Peter, for the answer. The one who asked you is the lecturer, I think. And now we move on to the student. The student she will ask to Miss Lisa. This question is come from Chita from SAPPK ITB. She would like to ask Miss Lisa, how effective peta konservasi air tanah to the development direction on spatial planning?
Okay. So, as I mentioned before, with the groundwater conservation map, that is, we use that in terms of seeing several things, the ideal conservation area. Actually, in our regulation, government regulation, we have some standards, we have some points, some on which area can be used for infiltration, which is the best area, but which area that can also be used for infiltration in Jakarta. So we use those the maps and the knowledge first for that. So for that, also with other maps that the Ministry of Energy also published in regards to our planning in Jakarta. And also in terms of the permission that are given, as I mentioned before, in terms of the permission that are given regarding the area that cannot be extracted. And that we use that also in our special planning, especially in regards to the basic infrastructures that should be provided within that area. You can see in the conservation map, you see that North Jakarta are areas. We see that the North Jakarta are areas that are the level of damage in terms of the groundwater groundwater is very high. So that's why, as you can see, answer somebody else's question, most of the project of water supply, the focus of the project of water supply now in Jakarta is mostly towards the northern part of Jakarta, where groundwater cannot be extracted anymore. As I said, if we can, then we have to provide another solution. So that's how we use that groundwater to, as Mr. Peter said, put a priority on the projects that we want to do. But that doesn't mean that we don't prioritize all the areas on the northern. We also prioritize those areas, and as I said before, all the projects in regard of water supply will also move towards the fulfillment of the Jakarta water supply, piping water supply for the northern part of Jakarta. So yes, we use all those maps, we use all the informations in our planning, in our spatial planning, and also in our technical planning in regards to what we have to do, what we need to do, what we need to prioritize to do. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, thank you, Miss Lisa. And then the next question will be for Mr. Peter again. Is from civil servant, water manager in Jakarta in Dinas Sumber Daya Air, Mr. Maman Supratman. Mr. Maman would like to ask Mr. Peter how to manage groundwater and surface water in one system. How to measure or estimate groundwater budget in spatio-temporal system, and then is there any relation between flood and groundwater condition in Jakarta City? There's 3 questions, Mr. Peter Hallender. Time is yours.
I had very bad sound in understanding the questions. So maybe we have to mute everybody and then you can pose the question once more. Mute.
Okay. Okay, I will read it again, Mr. Peter. The first question is how to manage groundwater and surface water in one system.
Sorry, the noise is between. I cannot hear the question.
Okay. Tim, please can you write in notes, perhaps in Miss Sarah, I think, can help us giving direct message to Mr. Peter so he can answer the question. And while we waiting, we continue to next question to another panelist. Okay, it's okay, Mr. Peter? I give you time to read and prepare the answer. Okay, then I will read another question while we waiting for Mr. Peter. The question is from Michelle Natalie to Miss Elizabeth. Michelle Natalie is from Paragon Technology and Innovation. Miss Lisa, I would like to hear from you. In your opinion, what is the simplest and the most feasible thing that people can do to properly treat their domestic wastewater so it could help the groundwater recharge and recovery? Okay?
Hey.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So treating wastewater. When we talk about wastewater at homes, because at our homes, so there are 2 kinds of wastewater: the gray water and the black wastewater. Black wastewater is from our toilets, from our bathrooms, and then the gray is from our washing and then from our sinks and everything like that. So there are 2 types, but both types must be treated. The common or the traditional knowledge that we have now in Indonesia, gray water you can directly discharge to our water bodies, to our channels, and then you only treat the black water in the traditional septic tanks, the one I mentioned before, that it's not waterproof, that the water infiltrates to the ground. That's why the groundwater. So the basic thing that everyone can do in their house, in their homes, are renewing or checking their septic tanks, and changing it now the more updated septic tank. In one of the pictures I saw you in regards to wastewater treatment, there are actions in regard to renewal, which is done by the government of Jakarta in collaboration with our company in wastewater treatment, Paljaya. So we put a new septic tank, which also have an aerob with oxygen and aerob method, and it will increase the treatment process so that the effluent that is resulting from that is better. And it's in a waterproof tight container so that it doesn't infiltrate to the ground. So both and black water must be treated, and every house must own their own septic tanks now. But Jakarta, as I said, is moving toward a centralized sewer system where everything goes to the pipe. So it's basically the same as the clean water. The clean water comes to the pipe, but the wastewater is going out of the pipe into facilities. So Jakarta is moving towards that with our project, the Jakarta Sewer System Project. It's ongoing right now. It's a centralized, it's a big scale mega also. So before that happens, before we can directly discharge, like also in the Netherlands, directly discharge our wastewater into the sewer system, then we have to use our own individual septic tanks to help conservation of groundwater and the conservation of also our surface water. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Miss Lisa. Mr. Peter, are you ready to answer Mr. Maman's question?
Yes, I did read the questions now properly. Thank you. I can reply to that. I don't know whether I have the straight answer, but the first question is, can you manage ground and surface water in one system? Basically, from origin, it is one system. The thing, though, is what we have to be alert of is that we are in the last couple of decades, also due to the fact that we are urbanizing our cities and our villages, and we're putting in more concrete and more bricks, we are more officially trying to separate these, because surface water was handling system by rainfall or by river discharges. And in order to keep it out of the urban areas and to drain out the water, we really had to get rid of the surface water in a very rapid way. But if you take out the surface water, let's say in a very rapid way to drain out to the system, to the, let's say, the main rivers or the sea, then you basically have a disruption of your system in which you have a kind of a natural replenishment of your groundwater. And we have to be alert that surface water, as a matter of fact, although there is an interaction with groundwater, but surface water is a very quick reacting system, while groundwater is a very slow system in reaction. You can extract something, also from the groundwater in a rather fast way, but the restoration of groundwater, let's say, reservoirs is really a very slow process. So if you take out the cement of your groundwater, the cement of your soil structures, then it's not so much quickly replaced, not so much in quantity, but definitely not in quality. So can you manage the system in a good way? Yes, you can manage it, but you really have to be alert of it, that you really do active measures in the surface and in your environment to store and retain water. That takes time to find again the interaction with your groundwater. And you have to actively monitor and implement, let's say, measures for that one by slow infiltration capacities. That's one, so it's a large answer. The second question was, can you estimate the budget of what is groundwater costing? And that is a difficult one to answer, because groundwater is not so much only, groundwater is basically everywhere, because usually your management system of your surface water is usually what you see is what you get. If there's rainfall and it flows towards the main rivers, that is where you can manage, and in that pathway you can manage the water. Usually with groundwater, that is very much more difficult to predict. Where is it flowing? How is it flowing? How deep is it? You can monitor it, and you can install different measures, groundwater levelers, whatever. But also, let's say, for groundwater, you can try to measure it, but there are also many people who use groundwater. You have industry, you have drinking water, you have nature, so the amount of stakeholders who really need the water is much more than usually we experience from surface water. Because surface water is usually a burden. Sometimes we have too much of it and we flush it, we want to drain it as much as possible. But once you have drained it out, it is lost. It is not something you can retrieve again, only by waiting for a number of rainfall events again. So, well, estimating a budget of, let's say, groundwater budget is really, you have to locate it to maybe the users to see, and also users may have to pay for, let's say, not directly the water, because people say rainwater is coming for free, groundwater is also there, it's for free, but for free does not mean extracted entirely and that it is endless. It is not, and let's say it is endless. So if you keep on extracting, so make sure that you have a good system, that you also pay for the infrastructure of water. Because for surface water, we also pay for infrastructure. For groundwater, you can also do that. And that is what Ms. Lisa addressed also this morning. By rules and regulations, you can manage your groundwater reservoirs. And that is where the budget should come from. And this is a relation between flood and groundwater in Jakarta. Well, basically that relates to the first picture. Yes and no. The no is that also Jakarta is a tremendous urbanized area with a lot of pavement, concrete, and the fact though is that if it is raining, that water is flushing. Yeah, and whether you have, let's say, undeep or deeper groundwater levels, that amount of rainfall does not, let's say, go into the soil if you do not actively manage that. So the relation between flood and groundwater is less. The relation between flood and urbanized areas is much more. And I think that is, I would like to leave it with this.
Thank you, Mr. Peter, for the answer. And next question is for Miss Inke. Miss Inke, you already mentioned about Water Plaza. Can you, what do you think about Water Plaza? Are you think that Water Plaza can be implemented in district areas such as kelurahan or kecamatan? What is your opinion?
Yes, of course, I think it can be implemented in the kelurahan, let's say, because right now we need the third space, right, for gathering, for like social thing. So I think water plaza or water square is a good option for that, because it's part of the multifunctional public spaces, like I said before, that when it's dry, you can use it for skateboarding or, you know, and then after the heavy rainfalls coming, and then it will become the temporary water storage. So I think it can be implemented, of course.
Like such as basketball court, I think, yeah? Or futsal court?
Yes, badminton, anything.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry because timekeeper already told me that we only have 10 minutes left. So I have to give a chance for all the speakers from Miss Lisa and then Mr. Peter and Miss Inke for making closing remarks. First, I'll give time for Miss Lisa. Please, your closing statement.
My closing statement, groundwater is visible, is valuable. Groundwater is everyone's responsibility, the government, the public sectors, lots of things that we can do to save it, lots of things to be more aware on how we use it, and lots of actions we can do keep it sustainable, keep it at the level it is. So together, all of us, we can also contribute to the future of Jakarta, especially in reducing the impact of land subsidence. So no matter what Jakarta becomes in the future, no matter even if it's not in the capital city anymore, but we will still be here, and we need to our wonderful, wonderful city, and hopefully we can reach the level that we were living in the Netherlands or other developed countries. That's it for me. Thank you very much for everyone for watching.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Peter, please, your closing statement.
Yeah, well, it's very much linked to what Ibu Lisa just mentioned. Take care that if you don't see something, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. So what you don't see is can be very much present. And keep in mind that maybe that was the cement of your subsoil, because if you take out the cement, if you take out the water of your soil, then a lot of things are going to happen which you are not in control of. And once your land is subsiding, you can never lift it up again. Unfortunately, it's not like an industry that you can manage something. So, and also because of the urbanization, we really have to be careful of how much, let's say there is an increment of people are moving towards cities. They want to live and recreate, and we have to, let's say, to facilitate that. But that also gives limitations to our physical area. And that is something where we have to be alert of and to become innovative. And I'm happy to see, very much happy to see that there is so much knowledge with you people in, at least in the area of Jakarta. And I hope that soon I will be in Indonesia also for a new project, which is, let's say, the Blue Deal partnership between, let's say, different authorities of Indonesia and different water authorities of the Netherlands, in which I would like to use this type of knowledge as well. So please also use your knowledge to help the whole of the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peter. I already realized that your name is so Dutch, yeah? Peter Hollanders. It's mentioned that you are really from Holland, from Dutch.
Exactly.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peter, for today. And then for Miss Inke, your closing remarks, please.
Okay, me personally, I hope the pandemic will end soon and the recruitment for the new batch will be opening soon, and we welcome you, Bapak Ibu, to join this program. And trust me, if you join this program, you will learn many things. So don't forget to join the DUTEP.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, all participants, thank you for joining today event. Mr. Miftah, Pak Miftah, terima kasih Pak sudah ikut sampai selesai. Saya bangga sekali nih. Biasanya kepala-kepala itu kalau ikut nggak sampai selesai ya Pak. Bapak sampai selesai, saya ucapin makasih. Satu kehormatan buat kami bisa jadi pembicara di sini. And I'm giving back this event to MC Miss Florentina. Time is yours. Thank you very much.
As Mr. Johan, Mr. Peter, Miss Elizabeth, and Miss Inke, and all the participants, we are very appreciative or truthful discussion today. Okay, distinguished participants, before we end the session, please can we fill our evaluation form. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, mohon mengisi form evaluasi dengan menjawab pertanyaan melalui pilihan yang muncul di monitor Bapak dan Ibu sekalian. Bapak dan Ibu bisa memilih sangat setuju, setuju, tidak setuju, dan sangat tidak setuju. Beberapa pertanyaannya yaitu: 1. Kualitas materi yang disajikan sesuai dengan tema dan kebutuhan peserta. Bapak Ibu bisa memilih sangat setuju, setuju, tidak setuju, atau sangat tidak setuju. Yang kedua, kualitas visual gambar paparan dan teks sangat baik dan jelas terlihat. Bapak dan Ibu bisa memilih pilihan yang muncul. Yang ketiga, kualitas audio atau suara sangat jelas dan jernih. Pertanyaan berikutnya yang keempat, kualitas penyampaian materi oleh narasumber sangat baik dan mudah dipahami. Yang kelima, sesi tanya jawab berjalan efektif dan mampu menjawab pertanyaan peserta. Dan yang keenam, secara keseluruhan penyelenggaraan seminar virtual berjalan baik dan efektif. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian bisa memilih sangat setuju, setuju, tidak setuju, atau sangat tidak setuju. Baik Bapak dan Ibu, bisa dipilih dan diisi form evaluasi yang muncul di monitor Bapak dan Ibu sekalian. Okay, our distinguished guests, our audience ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately we are already at the end of the session. Thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to meeting you at our next webinar session. Stay safe and stay healthy. Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you.
Thank you very much everyone.
Mantap nih tadi. Sampai tembus 300 tadi partisipannya. Keren. Terima kasih Mbak semua. Mbak Lisa, Mbak Inke,
Makasih,
thank you so much ya, Mr. Peter, makasih.
Ibu dari BPSDM.
Ya, dari BPSDM kesempatannya, terima kasih.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Jakarta, kota yang tangguh, selalu siap memanfaatkan peluang dan menghadapi tantangan. Banyak tantangan di Jakarta yang harus diatasi, seperti degradasi lingkungan, tata kelola transportasi, ekonomi, maupun lainnya.
Pembangunan Jakarta membutuhkan sumber daya manusia yang berkualitas. Sebagaimana statement Gubernur Provinsi DKI Jakarta, Bapak Anies Baswedan, bahwa kekayaan terbesar sebuah bangsa adalah manusianya, bukan sumber daya alam. Karena itu, Badan Pengembangan Sumber Daya Manusia Provinsi DKI Jakarta menghadirkan Jakarta Corporate University atau Jakorpo. Jakorpo merupakan salah satu strategi Pemprov DKI Jakarta dalam menciptakan link and match antara pembelajaran dengan pencapaian kinerja organisasi.
Tujuannya adalah meningkatkan kompetensi ASN yang profesional, berintegritas, serta mampu melayani masyarakat DKI Jakarta dengan sepenuh hati. Jakorpo memungkinkan kita untuk mengakses berbagai pengetahuan secara daring. Kita akan dapat menghimpun dan mengelola pengetahuan yang tersebar di masing-masing individu. Kita juga dapat belajar kapanpun, dimanapun, sesuai dengan kebutuhan. Sehingga proses pembelajaran dapat kita ikuti tanpa harus meninggalkan rutinitas.
Jakorpo menyediakan learning journey di Pemprov DKI Jakarta, sehingga ketika kita menempati posisi jabatan tertentu dengan sejumlah kompetensi yang dipersyaratkan, kita dapat mudah mengetahui apa saja program pembelajaran yang perlu kita ikuti.
Dalam perspektif organisasi Pemprov DKI Jakarta, Jakkorpu menjamin proses pembelajaran yang fokus kepada target organisasi, sehingga dapat berdampak pada peningkatan kinerja organisasi.
Di Jakkorpu, kita dapat menjumpai communities of practice yang melibatkan pakar praktisi dan para pegawai internal yang ahli dan kompeten pada bidangnya.
Rasakan pembelajaran yang menyenangkan bersama Jakkorpu. Jakkorpu, cepat, tepat, menuju terdepan.
Jakarta, kota metropolitan dengan berbagai tantangan yang dihadapi, membuat inovasi-inovasi untuk mengatasi permasalahannya melalui serangkaian kebijakan publik yang disusun sehingga dapat menjadi kota percontohan bagi kota-kota lainnya untuk dapat belajar dari Jakarta. Jakarta Public Policy Center merupakan sebuah wadah untuk pengembangan kompetensi dan kebijakan publik. Bernaung di bawah Badan Pengembangan Sumber Daya Manusia, Pemerintah Provinsi DKI Jakarta, Jakarta Public Policy Center berfungsi sebagai penunjang pencapaian visi misi gubernur pada urusan pemerintahan di bidang pendidikan dan pelatihan sumber daya manusia. Keberadaan Jakarta Public Policy Center dibentuk sebagai upaya terstruktur dan sistematis dari pemerintah Provinsi DKI Jakarta melalui penyelenggaraan pengembangan kompetensi, knowledge management, dan fasilitas studi banding terkait informasi pengelolaan kebijakan publik di pemerintah Provinsi DKI Jakarta agar kebijakan publik tersebut menjadi konsisten dan tepat sasaran. Dalam rangka pengembangan kompetensi dan pengelolaan kebijakan publik, Jakarta Public Policy Center memberikan fasilitasi, di antaranya mencakup pengembangan kompetensi teknis, pengembangan kompetensi pemerintahan dan sosial kultural, pengembangan kompetensi teknis strategis melalui public training, seminar urban regeneration, fasilitas studi banding dan best practice, serta kerjasama internasional dengan lembaga atau institusi luar negeri dalam rangka pengembangan kompetensi baik ASN maupun non-ASN. Jakarta Public Policy Center untuk Jakarta Tangguh.